Good evening. Welcome to a special late night. Well, it's really kind of early evening, but listen, when we go at 9 in the morning, generally, 8 p.m. counts as late night. So, a special late night episode of Snap Judgments. I'm here with Matt Chabot again. We had him on pre combine. We talked about the back seven of the defense primarily. And today we're primarily going to talk about the defense. Anthony and I got through the offense yesterday. So, Matt, you want to give yourself a quick introduction and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, same as last time we were talking about the DBs. I'm from Maryland. I graduated from the University of Maryland. I've been doing this for a little while, and I love the draft. I love football, so um, I'm another one of those dudes that just does this for fun, and people call me crazy, but that's totally fine with me. Um, it's a good time. I played defensive back growing up, but I'm 170 pounds, so that only lasted so long, and there's only one D'Angelo Ponds. So, um, now I watch football, evaluate football. I love it. So you can follow me at Chabot Sports, and uh, that's about it.
Right on. Yeah, listen, there's a definite ceiling for most white cornerbacks. It is what it is.
Yeah,
Okay. We're not
yeah,
NFL bound.
yeah. Especially when they're 5'9", 170. So
There you go.
doesn't work too
Um,
well.
yeah. All right. Well, listen, offense yesterday, like I said, defense today. This defensive class is important, I think, for both of our teams, the Patriots and the Chiefs. Um, I know you've written about it in your recent pieces. I've been going down a lot of the stuff you've been writing over the past week or two. And let's start at the edge position because you had written about some guys that you were interested in for Kansas City, and there's a lot of crossover there between guys that I'm interested in for the Patriots. But first of all, overall theme at edge with the shorter arms, is this kind of a league wide shift, you think, in terms of like lowering thresholds as players kind of get lighter and faster, or is this just a weird class?
I'm not gonna even short you. I think the guy who was measuring arms at the combine was an idiot. Like I just cannot imagine that many guys came in with arms that short, especially with all the rumors about like what they were gonna look like. And we saw reports from like Schefter and Rappaport saying that teams did their own measurements, and some people had Ruben Bain at 32, 33 plus. Like it just kind of depends on who you are. I think it only matters so much to certain teams. And it's kind of the same way for all positions. It's like, it really has seemed to matter who the coach is for the Seahawks. They love corners with those 33 plus inch arms, those massive dudes. It's just every team has their thing. The Chiefs love guys with a good 10-second get off at the line. So they are almost always looking in the 95th percentile of 10-second off the line of scrimmage. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. I'm not too worried about it, but it does depend on the type of player you are. I think the short arms are going to affect somebody like Cassius Howell more than they're going to affect somebody like Ruben Bain. Cassius Howell has blazing speed, but if you can't use your arms to get guys off of you when at the line of scrimmage, they're going to jump set you and knock you off your path every time. Ruben Bain's so strong that I think even with the shorter arms, he generates so much power that if your arms are straight and he folds them back, guy, good luck.
Yeah, Bain is an interesting prospect for me. And like from a Patriots lens, I don't, really care because we wouldn't have a shot at him even if we wanted him. But I think that, with the, let's call it what it is, historical outlier as an arm length at the draft position he's being considered at anyway. If it doesn't work out at edge, he came in there at what, 260, 270 and change. That's a
Yeah,
guy that's
something
going to
like
have to
that.
put on, 20 pounds if he needs to move inside. What do you think his future is? Do you like if Edge doesn't work out, does he have the ability to move inside and play there on a full time sort of basis or
So something I will add that's going to be kind of a trend throughout all of this. I really don't care what their combine weight is. Um,
right?
it just does not matter all that much to me um, because sorry, the NFL Combine site. I pulled it up to see what Ruben Bain weighed in at, and there is now something blasting in my ears. It's like an advertisement, and it's some kid next to their mom going like, "We need snacks." Like, oh, sorry, that was so weird. I apologize.
I had him at
Um,
270 from there.
yeah, he's at 263 listed at the combine.
Okay.
I don't care too much about weights from the combine. I think the Senior Bowl weights mattered more to me than anything. Um, Guys slim down for the combine every time because every team and every fan ever overvalues the 40-yard dash. And it's constant that we see guys, slim down for things like this. So um, if a player comes in slightly underweight, it doesn't raise too much concern for me because to an extent, I think that's intentional by the player. I don't think that the combine weight for almost any guy is going to be how they play.
Right, but still, I mean, going from 263 or whatever it is to
Yeah,
a weight that
280.
would make him useful as an interior defensive lineman in the NFL is a big jump.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It definitely is. It is important to notice it. And arms under 31 would be concerning. Again, I think that it's with the reports of like different teams having a wide range of different measurements. It's hard for me to take the measurements 100% seriously, just based on what it is being said by other analysts across the community. But
Yeah.
I think Ruben Baines, I mean, he's a legit player. I think you can play him wherever you want. He's a wrecking ball. His main thing is his power. I don't know that, it's going to help to have long arms in that scenario, but if he gets into your chest, you're screwed.
Yeah. All right. So moving along to some of the guys who had didn't have arm length conversation anyway. Um, Look, there are a few standouts for me in terms of guys that either the Patriots here have shown interest in, they fit our scheme, whatever it might be. Um, and those guys are DDS, Deni Dennis Sutton, Anthony Lucas, Malachi Lawrence, and then Gabe Yakis. So, just to tie it in for like Patriots fans that might be watching, the Keon White trade this season was revealing to me because he's a talented player. He's a good player. But they traded him for a sixth round pick to San Francisco. And I think they did that in large part because he was not very good at rushing the passer from a stand up position. When he had his hand on the ground, he generated a lot of power, generated a lot of pressure on the interior of the pocket. But he just wasn't great at rushing the passer from the outside or from a stand up position. And that's what we ask our edges to do a lot here in New England. So I'm curious what you think about those guys as you kind of compare and contrast primarily Lucas, Yakis, and Lawrence, because I don't think DDS translates incredibly well unless you have a different perspective on that. As far as a stand up rusher, bringing pressure off the edge, like the exterior edge.
Yeah, I also don't know how much arm length matters to Mike Vrabel, who drafted was a part of drafting Will Campbell last season. So I think that Mike
Yeah.
Vrabel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You know the Patriots better than I do, but he certainly seems like the type of coach that is like, if you can play football, I want you on my team. I don't care about this like
Yeah.
advanced stuff. You know what I mean? He just seems like that type of guy.
Yeah, generally speaking. Yeah, and I mean, just to add to that, Peter Skronsky for the Titans, he also drafted him. Now he played primarily at guard, not at tackle. But also
Yeah,
Roger McCreary out of Auburn, very short arms, like 29 and change,
yeah,
that
and
played
I don't know
cornerback.
about like Harold Landry and those guys, but even then,
Yeah,
like there's their
yeah.
smaller
Landry was
dudes.
definitely borderline, real short.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so I don't know how much it will matter, although it factors into every evaluation. It may matter more for my Chiefs, who are like to run the kind of the very different defenses with the Patriots fronts being a lot wider. The Chiefs like these four down, even fronts, big defensive ends that can set the edge, stop the run. So somebody like Dennis Sutton is going to be a perfect fit in the Chiefs defense. Big, strong guy, really check, like you said, check the boxes for everything. And he was talented on the Penn State film last year more than this year. I think people really wanted a bigger step up from him, but he has all the athletic skills to be very successful. Um, Anthony Lucas again is another one of those, like, he's a big prospect. I don't
Well, he
know
came in a
how.
lot smaller than I thought.
Yeah,
256.
yeah, yeah. I
I
had him
was blown away.
at USC. Um, or that was
What
what he in at 265 was the Senior Bowl, I think.
Yeah, he was like, what, 280 at USC, right?
Yeah, yeah. So uh he's again going to be one of those, like, I think even front five tech defensive ends. And Jackus may be the same way, or Yakis may be the same way. Malachi Lawrence is probably the best of those, like, hybrid group guys that are going to fit in with both the Chiefs and the Patriots. And Malachi Lawrence is a freaky athlete. He's pretty high on my board. I have him at edge 8, right below Danny Dennis Sutton, who is right below Gabe Jackus.
Okay.
So I think I'm gonna keep saying Jackus. I think it's Yakis. I'm gonna keep messing it up if I do. But the three of those guys are really similarly placed on my board. But I think Malachi Lawrence would probably be the best fit for the Patriots. That guy has such a wide range of pass rush moves. He is so athletically talented off the edge, great bend, but good size, and he's not a slouch on run defense either. He can play a little bit tall, so he gets pushed back, but he sets the edge really well.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think like a lot of what we do schematically defensively is we'll have like basically three big guys on the defensive line. Oftentimes it'll be like Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, and another guy, um, which is kind of like a rotation there. And then the smaller guys out wide, Chason and Landry, a little bit smaller pass rushers. And then for the nickel, base fight type package, four guys, two defensive tackles, and that's when like we'll see Anthony Jennings come in, who's a little bit of a bigger edge. I think Lawrence fits us really well. We don't ask a lot of those guys in the run game, so it's kind of works out. His weaknesses align with our uh, scheme requests, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I'm
will.
curious. Yeah.
I was going to say I will mention one guy who I think could be a fit for the Patriots specifically. And as much as I would like him to come to my Chiefs, I don't think that at 6'2", 247, the Chiefs are going to be super duper interested in him. But Nadame Tucker is my guy in this year's draft. Super real talented player from Western Michigan. The biggest mistake Houston made all year in football was letting that kid out of the facility. They may have been in the college football playoff if they had an edge rusher like Nadame Tucker. And he went down to Western Michigan, led the nation in sacks. Just a super skilled pass rusher on the outside. The Patriots like those wide outside pass rushers. So that's a good fit for them, even at 6'2", 247 with just 31.5-inch arms. He has such a wide range of pass rush moves. He is an explosively athletic player. So I think the Patriots would have some interest in a guy like him, especially on day 2.
Yeah, and now the first question I had while you were saying that is why did Houston let him go to Western Michigan? Any idea?
That is the biggest question mark I have for him. I really could not tell you. I mean, there's an extent to which you can log stats at a school, and some people will say that they're empty stats at a small school. But I mean, what was it, 16 and a half sacks? You can't fake 16 sacks. You can't just luck your way into 16 sacks. And I mean, I would be impressed with 16 sacks at a D2 level. Not quite that he'd be as high on my board as a prospect, but still 16 sacks, I'd be like, okay, maybe you can come play at a high D1 school. But Nadame Tucker, he just didn't play at Houston. He just never found the field. I don't really understand why, and that was the biggest mistake that they made this offseason, was just letting him leave, because they needed a guy like him this year.
Now, question for you, and I'll give you my answer real quick because you had mentioned something like, the Chiefs really like the quick get off and a prospect. Every team kind of has their own thing, and I think every analyst kind of has their own thing too. For me, big hands and the 10-yard split. Those are the two things, one measurement, one test that get my attention that I kind of look for first, real quick. What would it be for you if you had to pick a measurement and a test?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the position. The 10-yard get off is huge, almost regardless of position to me. Like,
Right.
if you're not able to get off the line, that's just a huge part of football, pretty much regardless of where you're at. Um, and I like I care about arm length, but less so this year than in years past because maybe I'm falling into some conspiracy theory crap here, but I really just think they were shorting guys this year. And I mean, I was hearing from people that some dudes were coming in 2 inches longer in other places. It's just how they measure the guys.
Mm,
Um, so I'm not 100% sure. I do like for receivers. I like the gauntlet drill to see how you catch the ball through. Um, running, turning your head, staying on your path, all that stuff. So,
right.
but
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I like the ball tracking stuff for corners. The 40 time does matter to me for corners. Shuttle time matters to me for offensive linemen. It just kind of depends for position, but I would say that 10-yard split is pretty important regardless of who you are.
Yeah, that's why I chose the 10-yard split because it's almost like doesn't matter if you're a D tackle, if you're a running back, if you're doesn't matter. I want to know the 10-yard split. That's what I'm
Yeah.
looking. Everybody else is looking for the 40. I generally don't give a shit about the 40 time. What I give a shit about is the 10-yard split. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, with corners, I care some about the 40 time because I do want to see your ability to recover on deep routes, things like that. So it does matter to me some if you get burnt, how capable are you of turning your hips and catching up? Um,
Yeah.
to an extent, I'd like to see them not start in a track position, turn themselves backwards, and have to flip their hips and run 40 yards, but I don't think they're ever going to do that.
Um, yeah, I mean that would make sense certainly for the corners. Um, Well, listen, I read your a recent article of yours on Arrowhead Addict, and several of the edges that you talked about in that article were we've already talked about here. But there's one guy that you talked about that I really don't have a lot of exposure to, and that's Aiden Hubbard. Could you tell me a little bit about him?
Look, this edge class is pretty top heavy, as are most parts of this draft. There's few positions that are going to have a lot of like depth to them. Um, I write covering very chief specific stuff over at Arrowhead Addict. I just started over there, working with Price, who we've worked with, a draft professor and stuff like that. But um, I wrote about Aiden Hubbard specifically because if the Chiefs are going to be picking defensive linemen on day 3, and I kind of sorted my each article I wrote about was kind of like leveled for availability. I didn't just want to do 5 first round edge rushers. I didn't want to do 5 high price, low price, whatever. On day 3, if the Chiefs are going to take an edge rusher, they need a guy with size who can play D end, and they need a guy who is going to come up with consistent edge setting skills uh, to be that rotation 4-3 defensive end that they're looking for.
Okay.
Um, Hubbard is that type of guy. He's 6'4", 255. He played across from Anto Saka this year at Northwestern, and he was exceptional.
And
Saka
Saka
was
went back, right?
yeah, Saka did return. I actually think he transferred.
I had
But
him on my radar early, like in summer scouting, but
yeah, Saka had a heck of a year last year. And Hubbard was more of like the reliable, like good run defender, decent pass rusher, kind of like let Saka do what he wants and then luck into a sack or two, but really play defense. That's what Hubbard does best. So I think for the Chiefs, the Chiefs are the difference between probably the Chiefs and the Patriots. The Patriots are going to have that one fast edge rusher. They really want him to win on an island. The Chiefs are looking to contain and let the Sharks eat in the middle. They want Chris Jones to get there. They want whoever their other defensive tackle is to win and get to the quarterback. And the edge rushers just have to contain.
okay. Yeah, yeah. I specifically remember the in the summer, because the Patriots obviously they were still instilling kind of all their everything last summer, and they were talking to Milton about the differences schematically and so forth. And he was like, it's so much easier here in New England because they don't want you to do anything but run after the quarterback. That's it. And that's pretty much all they want us. They want our defensive line guys to do. They don't really care so much about the run defense. They seem to put that on the linebackers, which transitions us nicely to the next group. Look, the linebacker group was led by an absolute freak athlete, Sonny Styles. Now, I know that you don't want a linebacker for the Chiefs, but listen, if he fell, man,
Look, if he's
that's
there at 9, I won't complain.
yeah, that's a dude, all right. Like,
Yeah.
um, what do you think about this combine performance, man? That was that was something.
Yeah, that's the best linebacker combine I've ever seen. I mean, he puts himself on par with like what Amanwari did last year as a safety. The two of them, you just don't see guys at Siles's size move the way that he did.
Yeah.
Laterally, straightforward, up in the air. It just absurd stuff from him. Um, yeah, if he got to the Chiefs at 9, I wouldn't be able to say no. I don't think. I mean, we have Nick Bolton. I'm hoping and pleading that we keep Leo Chanel, but it doesn't look like we're going to. Um, for now, Drew Tranquil is still with us, so I'm not going to be opposed to Sonny Styles. I don't think any team should be opposed to Sonny Styles outside of the top, 3 or 4 picks. But yeah, this kid put on a show at the combine. Um, there's not many like him. There
Now,
just aren't.
what do you project his role to be in the NFL? I could very well see almost a Nicky Manwari like usage for him. He's a little bit heavier, but when you got an athlete like that, that can cut, he can cover the run. He has safety experience. He should be able to cover, like in pass coverage.
Yeah, I it kind of depends on the defense. If you're taking him and you run an odd front, you're going to kind of play him in that either linebacker or hybrid-ish safety, like extra nickel safety type of thing. But this guy's just different. I mean, really play him where you want. He's going to impact the game. I've seen him rush the passer. I've seen him cover receivers. I've seen him cover tight ends. I've seen him cover running backs. He's the second best player in the draft on my board, and he's just different as an athlete. I mean, he's still got plenty of ways to go. He's
Now,
still
did
new
he
to the linebacker thing.
was
So
he the second best player in the draft coming in for you? I forgot coming into the
yeah, he
combine.
was. Yeah, he
Okay, so
was.
was there was no movement at the top for you at the
Yeah,
combine?
he stayed just below Caleb Downs,
Gotcha.
who maybe we'll talk about later with the
Yeah, yeah, we will definitely touch
garbage
on him when
that's
we get to the safeties here.
yeah.
Moving right down the linebacker group, Kyle Lewis is another guy. He had a real strong Senior Bowl. I felt like he had a real strong combine showing. Um, how do you think what do you think he's done for himself as part of this pre-draft process? And kind of what do you think is a realistic range and role in the NFL for him?
I don't know exactly where he'll go in the draft because Kyle Lewis is going to fall into the category of like only so many teams need a player like Kyle Lewis. So how high does he go? It's kind of like drafting a center or a nose tackle or something like that. No matter how good somebody like Lee Hunter is or Connor Liu is, they may fall in the draft because only so many teams need a pure nose tackle or a pure center. So many teams need this like linebacker safety hybrid that is Kyle Lewis. He's got tons of range, tons of coverage skills. I'm super impressed by him. I think that if every single team needed his position right now, he has first round talent, but I don't think he goes anywhere near there. I think he goes closer to third, fourth, fifth round. Uh, but that's not for a lack of his ability to play. That's because only so many teams need him right now. But if some team does need him and they decide that they want a good one, they're going to go get him because the way that he tested at the combine, the way that he covered at the Senior Bowl, he's a very, very talented player.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes just the pure economics of this thing will get you, but somebody's going to get a really, really good guy, day 2, day 3 in the draft. And speaking of guys who are just good football players, Jacob Rodriguez went out there, and he didn't put on a show. I wouldn't say, like, look, he didn't have Sonny Styles numbers, but we didn't expect that. We expected subpar, honestly, and we were all going to be happy with average. And I think he performed slightly above average. I think he really solidified himself, probably a second round spot in this draft. What do you think?
I think he deserves a first round spot. I don't know that he gets taken up there, but I mean, I had Jacob Rodriguez graded in my top 50. I have 5 linebackers if you include Arvell Reese as a linebacker in my top 50. Jacob Rodriguez snuck his way in there towards the end of last season, and especially at the Senior Bowl with his nose for the ball. And then his testing just says whatever you need to know is, and to me, what it says is that we already saw what he's doing in college right now against the best of the best. And there's room for him to get better because he looked slow. He looked late. Like in pass coverage, sometimes he looked lost.
Yeah.
But as a tackler, he's great. His nose for the ball is great. His motor is great. And now his athleticism is great. The only thing we were worried about. I mean, I think that people see him as this really traditional linebacker, and he is kind of that. But this is a dude who you can plug him at any real uh, second level role, and he's going to excel. He is just so unbelievably talented. He's my linebacker 3 in this year's draft, if you include Arvo Reese as a linebacker. So I've been firmly impressed with his skills.
Okay, that's just behind only Styles and Reese then.
Yeah.
Did you freeze up? Oh, okay. I think my connection froze there for a minute. Yeah.
That's all good.
The other thing I was going to say about Jacob Rodriguez, and I'm having a hard time pulling up the page on the combine, is that his measurements, he was expected to kind of be a little on the smaller side, and I think he came in roughly about the same size as CJ Allen.
Yeah. Let me get it up here. Search these linebackers. Rodriguez came in at 6'1", 230, which is ideal linebacker
That's the
size.
exact same measurement CJ Allen came in, 6'1", 230.
So I think that, I mean, I probably would have said before the draft that those guys are going to be Rodriguez shorter and heavier and Allen taller and thinner. So happy to see Allen carry the weight, and I'm happy to see Rodriguez carry the athleticism because that's a huge part for his game. That's just a huge thing for both of them.
It was definitely a good weekend for him, and it's been a good process for him overall. Anyone else at the linebacker position jump out and surprise you one way or the other, good or bad?
Yeah. I'm taking a look. Caleb Ilarms Orr is a guy who I've been mentioning prior to the season. Anybody who puts up 130 tackles should be on the radar for every draft scout in the world. He put on a show at the combine, looked really good. He moved incredibly well. So that was good to see. Jake Golday moved pretty well for a guy of his size. I mean, several players like that, but I would definitely give Ilarms Orr the last piece of cake as far as who I think deserves some serious mentioning.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, you can't eat that. Sorry, my cat's terrorizing me. The one guy that jumped out to me negatively, and he was a guy that Patriots fans had been projecting to us, really in the second round, I think, but I'd seen a couple of them trying to take a crack at him in the first round, was our Mason Thomas. I thought he had a disappointing combine. I mean, not only did he come in a little smaller and shorter than anybody would like, but the 4.67 40 and really the 1.63 10-yard split is kind of what jumped out at me. Again, the hand size and the 10-yard split are things that I key in on. And our Mason Thomas failed both those tests with under 9-inch hands and an over 1.6 10-yard split. What do you think about him? So I felt like he was a lot of it was like, oh yeah, he's going to be a little smaller, he's going to have a little shorter arms, but he's got really quick get off. And then he didn't have really quick get off, and I was disappointed.
Yeah, that's exactly what he pitched to everybody prior to the draft. I had the same gripe with Romello Height, who was supposed to be like this super undersized. He and Quintravious Hutchins, who had the worst 10-yard split of anybody in the class.
Yes.
I felt like a lot of those guys were like undersized players that are going to come in with a really high burst, and we just didn't see it from our Mason Thomas. I think he plays faster than he moved at the combine, and he may not have this track experience. But even in the drills, he looked a little bit lagging. And he may be 6'2". He's 250, I believe. I mean, let's see. I don't remember exactly what he was carrying at the combine. 241 is just like, that's not going to be big enough for him to play at the NFL and move like that. So I'd rather see him carry the 250 he was listed at and kind of play a more traditional role. But definitely needs to did not perform as to expected.
Yeah, Hutchins is a good call out on that too. He's obviously a local kid. He's a Boston College guy, which is local enough to us here in Providence. But yeah, he was disappointing to me. 174, I think, 10-yard split, just off the top of my head,
Yeah,
and like a
173.
4.7 340. Okay, okay,
Yeah,
4.7 340 though, right?
yeah, yeah, something
Okay,
like
yeah.
that.
So 4.7
And the
3 and
the
then 1.73 split.
the
That's
two
rough at
Duke kids
233.
also struggled to get off as well. Those were also like kind of yikes to me. LT Overton
Yes.
struggled a little
Yeah.
bit at the combine. He's came in a bit
Well,
still
right.
big and
But none of those guys are tiny sized, which is the
right.
Hutchins, you can't be 233 and slow. Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
just not
Yeah.
gonna work out,
Yeah,
okay?
those two things don't pair well. So you gotta you if you're gonna run slow, you gotta bring power. If you're gonna
Yeah.
move fast, well, if you're gonna be small, you gotta bring speed. So
Yeah. Now, moving along to the cornerback group here, um, and speaking about speed, this was a fast group, and we had a lot of bigger corners testing well. I, I had a number of guys highlighted with a little, kinda like I like to put in their results and kinda green flag, red flag results, and then highlight the guys who I thought had the best. And I had a number of guys highlighted using that formula. Nobody better than Charles Demings.
yeah.
What do you know? I haven't really talked a lot about this guy in the pre-draft process, and I haven't heard him talked a lot about. So let's change that and give him some airtime. Tell us about Charles Demings,
So
Stephen F. Austin, by the way.
I have to give a completely real honest opinion here. I do the general rule for myself is that I'm not gonna make in-depth comments about players that I haven't watched enough of. And I only found one SF Austin game. In that one SF Austin game, Charles Demings looked great, looked super strong, was a really, really skilled player, looked like a really good athlete. But I didn't really get enough to watch of him that I was able to put together a full evaluation. This combine just showed me that he is the athlete that he looked like in that one game. And if I can get more tape from him, I will be more than happy to list it. But he absolutely moved very well. He came in with perfectly sized arms at 32 inches, 6'1". I mean, that's outside corner stuff.
Yeah.
So that definitely tested his way into early day 3, late day 2 territory, especially if a scout falls in love with the tape that I don't have.
Yeah. I mean, I had, one, two, three, four, out of 7 different, measurements that I was using, he lit green on all of them, or it might have
Yeah.
been 7 of 8. But, height, arm, hand size, 40, 10, vert, and broad, just across the board. I don't think he was on the list of names I gave you prior to the episode, so that's my apologies for throwing a live
No
curveball there.
problem. No.
But I do believe the other guys, now, interesting name that hit for me with 6 green flags on my list, and that was for height, arm, hand, 40, 10, and broad, is Malik Muhammad. Um, I think he's an underrated prospect in this class. I've thought he was an underrated prospect in this class since before the combine, but I feel like this kind of confirms that for me. Um, what do you think about him? He's a Texas cornerback for folks who don't know, and he had the rep for being a little undersized, but I just haven't seen that. What do you think?
6 foot 185 and was a very willing tackler at Texas. I never really understood the dislike of Malik Muhammad. I've had him in my top 75 since the start of the draft, fell into my top 100, but is not going to fall out of there. I still think he's a day 2 player. This is a guy who played with Jade Barron. From the moment he arrived in Austin, Texas, became a starter for them. Whether he was playing in the slot, he was playing outside. Him, Jalen Gabo, and Jade Barron were full-time starters on that Texas defense, was one of the best secondaries in the nation. And when he was a freshman, he was a star, seriously. In the college football playoff last year and this year, he helped, or just last year, Texas didn't make the college football playoff this year. Last year, he covered Jeremiah Smith one-on-one. He covered Jordan Tyson one-on-one. And he covered Ryan Williams when he was having the best season of his career one-on-one. All 3 of those guys, he looked excellent against all 3 of them. Really, really caught my eye. This is a super talented player. Some people may have some concerns about instinct, stuff like that. I haven't seen it. I've seen some concerns about his tackling. I'm not concerned about his willingness to tackle. I'm barely concerned about his ability to tackle. Um, I do see that sometimes he kind of doesn't throw the shoulder in there and he kind of tries to arm tackle, but there's bigger things to nitpick at this year's corner class than a guy who throws a couple arm tackles around. You know what I mean? This is somebody who can play outside, inside, and has proven to be a very talented corner against the best competition in the nation.
And I mean, honestly, a lot of times with a cornerback or a secondary player in general, you want to see the willingness more than anything. Like you can work on technique, you can work on those things as long as you're willing to, and I don't have to light that fire. I'm happy. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
for the
it's
guys
hard to
who,
convince a guy to run into a brick wall, even if he won't break it. But
yeah,
if the guy's willing to run into the brick wall, eventually he's going to break through the wall. You just got to make him keep doing it. But if you're willing to go run into a big tight end, and try to tackle him, I don't got to do much more with you. Hopefully you can gain some weight, but that's about it.
yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. Um, so for the guys who had five green flags on my list, right? Uh, it's an interesting little dichotomy between the two of them because one of them you have said, I believe I read that you think he's the best man cover corner in the class, and the other one I think projects better as his own cover guy. I don't think he should be in a lot of man cover situations at all. You might be able to guess the two names on this list. Number one is
Got
Julian
one of them.
Neal.
Yep.
Yep. And the other one is Chris Johnson out of San Diego State. Um, so let's like talk about those players, kind of compare and contrast them for a moment here. How high do you think Julian Neal can go? Because I know you're high on him, but I haven't heard a lot of talk or buzz with him on like day two, even.
So we got both Chris Johnson and Julian Neal. We got my corner 5 and corner 6. I have Chris Johnson just above him, but they're both graded in my top 75. I think both of them could go on day two. I think there is a certain amount of like believing in certain players, and everybody likes to tag their guys, but the reality is this year's class is relatively thin, especially at the top. I think that's something that I try to keep hammering down because I don't want scouts to forget that this year's draft, we all knew it was thin coming into it. It's not a super strong class. So some guys are going to get pushed up the board. So I don't know that in years past these guys are top 75 players. And I can tell you that right now, I think both of these guys are top 75 players. Chris Johnson, super physical, very athletic. Um, Down at San Diego State, I think he has the capability to play in man coverage. We just haven't seen it enough. And it is going to have to be something that's drilled into his game more so than something you plug him into. Julian Neal's the best man corner in this year's draft. I watched Jermod McCoy play at Tennessee. I've watched Davis Igbinosun play at Ohio State, and I'm a man who loves Davis Igbinosun. I've seen D'Angelo Pons go one-on-one with some of these guys. Brandon Cisse is great. Prysock is great. A lot of these guys are very impressive to me. Julian Neal is different. That guy is somebody I would feel comfortable throwing him up on the line of scrimmage one-on-one and tell him to go jam the crap out of that guy in front of you. And he's super physical, has the athleticism to keep up. Just a different type of player that we don't see a ton of in the NFL. And if you can do man coverage, typically I can teach you to do zone coverage. I don't know how well, I mean, you can teach certain technique things, but if a player doesn't have the movement skills or the physicality to keep up in man coverage, I can't teach you to do that. Julian Neal has that.
Yeah, that's just an instinct thing almost.
Yeah, your ability to react and your ability to stick on the hip and know what's coming, things like that. That is a huge thing for a man coverage corner. That's a difficult thing to bring to the game. That not enough players do bring to the game. Julian Neal 100% brings that. His time at Arkansas shows that for sure. But that zone coverage is going to have to be drilled in because he definitely is not the best there. And he's not an elite athlete, but he moved well at the combine, well enough that I think he belongs in these day two conversations.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Of the next group, and I'm just only going to ask about one because he hasn't got any airtime on this channel at all, and I don't hear a lot of talk about him. Will Lee the third. Now he ticked boxes for me with height, arm length, vertical, and rod. Um, there's an obvious absence of 40 time or 10-yard burst on that list. I don't even have them written down right in front of me. I could pull them up. But what do you think about
I don't
Willie the
think
third?
he did run. He did run. He ran 4.52, and his 10-yard split was 1.56.
Should have red flagged
Yeah.
those.
Willie the third.
Well, the 40
Uh,
anyway. The split's not bad, but the 40's not good.
yeah, Willie the third was one who frustrated me because I'm gonna find it, but I know that Texas A&M listed him at like 6'4" earlier this year, like before the season started, and now they have his weight and height adjusted. I'm trying to find it because I know they had him listed as this like massive corner. And coming into the season, I was like, whoa, I mean, that's a guy at 6'4" who moves like that. And then at 6'1", I was like, okay, he's moving
Yeah.
like a guy who's 6'1". He has press man all over him. I mean, at Texas A&M, that's what he played. That's what he was good at. His body type shows press man type of stuff. This is a talented player. I think that he's a skilled guy. If you take him late in the draft, you're not going to be disappointed. He played at Kansas State for a little bit prior to Texas A&M. At all three schools, he's been a very solid player. So I think if you get him, he's the type of guy that you're not going to be disappointed in. But uh, he's not a perfect prospect by any means. He has his flaws in zone coverage. He's not always the best tackler. That's kind of why I think the 6'4" taller frame thing started to show up, was people were like, we're not worried about a guy of that size not tackling super well. And then you see him shrink down a little bit, and it's like, not really sure which way you're going with that.
That makes sense. He's definitely showed the explosion anyway.
Yeah.
The 42-inch vertical and 11-foot broad are both fairly impressive numbers. And the 10-yard split I had mentioned, it was just short of getting green flagged by me. My cutoff was 155 or lower. He had a 156. So that's not bad. Top end speed is questionable with a 4.52, but we've seen guys be successful in the league with slower 40s than that.
Yeah, so Aggie's wire preseason had him at 6'3/6'4", 190. And that was something I was excited about. A guy, he was my favorite of the bigger corners, with him, Prysock, and Davis. Both Prysock and Davis moved well, by the way. But when Willie came in at 6'1", I was a little disappointed by that. So that kind of moved him down my board a little bit. But then, seeing how he moved and his frame in general, I think he shows those press man skills you're looking for.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to mention Prysock because I've talked about him a little bit on this channel already. He's a favorite of mine. With I'm looking at him in like maybe round 3, round 4. We've got 2 round 4 picks, and if he's sitting there, I'd be super happy if they grabbed him. I've heard a lot of talk from folks that are more scout-eyed than me, that they felt like Prysock moved better than Davis at the combine. What do you think?
I think Davis moved faster. Prysock moved better.
Okay.
Like efficient movement matters at corner. Speed also matters for recovery, but Prysock isn't going to get burned first. Now, my gripe with Prysock when he was at Washington was he was grabby. And it was something that happened this year, not last year, which is kind of the difference between how I viewed him and Davis and Igbinosun this year. Prysock was one of those guys that definitely was a heavily flagged player. And he played a high quality as a tackler, as a man defender, and as a zone defender. So that ability to do it all was huge. I had some gripes with being penalized. Sometimes he did get guys got behind him a little bit, but he's able to make up that ground. But I did feel like the thing with him that I wanted to see was stop holding guys, because you have the athleticism to keep up with them. So I think in the NFL, they'll throw the oven mitts on him, have him go out there, and he'll kind of work on that. But he has to recognize that he has the athletic ability to stick with these guys. He doesn't have to get grabby.
That makes sense. He
Yeah.
the numbers align with what your eyes said too, where Davis ran a slightly faster 40, but Prysock showed slightly better explosion numbers with a slightly faster 10-yard split, a slightly better vertical, and a slightly better broad jump.
Yeah, and
They
it's
showed up at
for
just about the same size too.
and for guys like that, it's all about your ability to flip your hips and maneuver, the way your shoulders are facing, to keep receivers in front of you, keep your hands able to play on the ball. You don't want to get turned around. And for someone like Takario Davis, I felt like he was getting turned around a lot at Arizona, and then at Washington. And I think those two guys, I thought Prysock was better at Washington. I still think he's the better of the two. I have an early day 3 grade on him. So I think the 4th round is a realistic spot for him. That would make a lot of sense for the Patriots, who would love to have the type of corner like that. Him across from Gonzalez, that feels like a really good corner too to have.
Yeah, and I feel like he would have, at least a year to sit kind of behind Carlton Davis without a whole lot of pressure to really be out there playing right away. And then next season, if they decide to move on from Carlton Davis or any of that, whatever they do, he'd be an ideal replacement.
Yeah, you're going to struggle to find two better guys to learn from as a big corner than Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to the safety group. Look, this was a very fast athletic group, and that's a kind of a running theme throughout this whole combine is this was the fastest group we've seen. You'll hear a lot. Look, how much of that is due to guys not running, right? The big guys didn't run.
Good portion of it is because we got two Styles brothers in the draft. And if you've seen their dad, you know why they run the way that they do, because that guy is yoked. But
yeah,
Sonny
he was
Styles
a player when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, Sonny Styles, this younger brother, Lorenzo, or older brother, Lorenzo, ran a 4.27 in this year's combine. So a lot of that speed came from the Styles brothers. Dylan Thieneman looked really good. 4.35 from him was unexpected. And then in the drills was the best safety on the field. I think the guy who I was shocked by the most, VJ Payne running a 4.40 is huge.
Okay.
4.40 from VJ Payne is massive for a guy who is coming in at 6'3", 206. He didn't slim down that much. I mean, he was like 215 at Kansas State. Losing 10 pounds, that's kind of on brand for most of these guys at the combine, but running a 4.40 is not what's on brand for most of these guys at that size, running at that speed. I think that really cements him as kind of a early to mid day 3, but like this type of box safety that the NFL wants to see. He really has that type of skill set. A lot of sub 4.4s, really good movement skills. Probably the most disappointing of the group. And I don't know how surprising this is to you or to other guys. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren running a 4.52 and a 1.58 10-yard split was disappointing to me. The vertical jump wasn't great. The broad jump was okay. I wanted to see better athleticism from a guy who played at a small school and was seen as this like athletic freak who may need to develop in the NFL. That doesn't give you a ton of room. That doesn't give you a lot to work with because he was getting comparisons to guys like Nick Amanwari who tested out of this league last year. So coming in and putting up like subpar numbers is going to be concerning.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because he was billed as the athletic freak and Thieneman was billed as kind of the, cerebral leader and all that. But Thieneman is the one who really tested out athletically.
Seriously.
He was incredibly impressive. Essentially, the safety version of Jacob Rodriguez, right? We were just kind of hoping to see like on par numbers would have been enough to justify a draft position. And instead we saw really elite numbers. Your recent article for Arrowhead Addict had him targeted as a potential second round pick for the Chiefs.
Yeah, he's not.
You can't possibly think he's going to make it all the way there,
not
right?
anymore. Nope. I wrote that before the combine. I had hope. It's not going to happen now, unfortunately. So when that came out, it was we all kind of knew what was going on with that, but he's not making it out of the first round. There's no way.
No,
I also mentioned Emmanuel.
I don't even think he'll be there at 31 for the Patriots.
Yeah, I also mentioned Emmanuel McNeil-Warren in that as like the athletic freak. And I don't think that's going to happen either. I think that he's going to go lower. Now, I think that you're looking at a 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round guy with the way that he tested. And there's just better options in this year's draft at this point. I mean, I had high hopes for how he would test. And I think the two of those guys kind of just went in opposite directions where Thieneman's not going to be there for the Chiefs. As much as I would have loved it, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Unless we trade Trent McDuffie.
I'd be lucky. I'd be considered lucky if he was there at 31 for the Patriots, let alone in the 2nd round early.
Yeah.
Now, sticking to the safety position, you've been a huge Caleb Downs fan. You mentioned him earlier in the conversation here. How real are the injury concerns that are coming out now?
Look, I am not I'm not going to brand myself as an insider, so I don't know what his medicals look like. I'm also not going to brand myself as a doctor. So even if I did see them, I wouldn't know how to interpret them. But what I will add, as a person who has watched sports for a long time, has played sports for a long time, has friends who've played sports at a high level, things like that. Meniscus damage is something that generally I don't even think should be concerning as much as expected for a player at this level. Almost
Hmm.
every single football player, by the time they are going pro, has some level of minor meniscus damage. I think that that's like a very overblown idea of like trimming at the cartilage of the meniscus is something that's very common. I mean, how many times do we hear athletes talk about their cleanup surgeries in the offseason?
Right.
I know that if you're a Chiefs fan, anybody that's out there that's a Chiefs fan, you're also probably a Royals fan. If you've watched Royals baseball, you've heard Rex Hudler, who's the announcer for the Royals, say, I've had 9 cleanup knee surgeries in my MLB career. This is what they do. They clean up the knee, they trim off a piece of the meniscus. It's not an uncommon thing to hear of. And then ACL, detrimental ACL is poor wording for a mildly torn ACL, something that's partially torn. Again, not super uncommon, not super concerning unless they thought they had to do surgery on it. If they don't think they have to do surgery on it, we just watched Olympics. Lindsey Vonn managed to go downhill a couple of times, and
Yeah.
I'm glad she's okay. But several times went down a hill without an ACL. So you know what somebody can do without one. He still has his. It's a partial tear, maybe minor damage. And I think that a lot of times at the combine, we see these like character concerns, stuff like that, that just we haven't seen before, like this injury history for Caleb Downs. I think there is an extent of like teams lower in the draft, kind of like, oh no, he's
Right.
got this. Please fall to us. Please fall to us. Please fall to us. Like
Right. Yeah.
trying to put some things out there. I don't think there's any fire to a Caleb Downs injury. He didn't play like he was injured. He never looked like he was injured unless it happened on the last play of his season for Ohio State. I do not care. I didn't need to see him test. I don't need to see him play again. He doesn't need to play another snap of college football. Didn't need to do anything at the combine. This kid is the best safety prospect I've ever watched.
Okay. Well, that's pretty firm.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't
So
know that I can give a much stronger endorsement for a player, but I could not possibly be much more sold on Caleb Downs as a prospect.
okay. All right. So listen, let's wrap this thing up. Get you out of here so you can get some, NyQuil or some shit in your system.
Yeah.
Um, Overall stock up. All right. And I'm gonna lead off and I'm gonna go with Mama Styles. Okay. What is she feeding those boys? She's gonna be
Seriously.
on these Campbell soup commercials real soon. Okay. If they're smart, they get in there and she's gonna tell everybody in America what to feed their kids. Who do you
Yeah.
think is an overall stock up from the combine? Who gained the most in your eyes?
Somebody who I don't think is getting talked about quite enough is Dalen Everett from Georgia, who I have listed as a slot corner. He ran a 4.3840.
Oh,
That was a
slot
great
corner,
time
huh?
for him. I did not see that coming from him. I think that he's going to look a lot better in the slot at the NFL level. He came in at 6'1", 196. That's fine size to be playing in the slot. With 32-inch arms, he can easily kick to the outside. Good hand size. Athletically was very, very talented at this year's combine. I think he was somebody that really early in his career started playing at Georgia. And you don't get to play earlier in your career at Georgia unless you're a very talented player.
Yeah.
Dalen Everett is a quite talented player. So I think he really did something to boost his stock. Same with Chandler Rivers, who also is going to be one of those slot guys. 4.40 from him was really good to see.
Yeah, yeah. Dalen Everett's been one that interests me because I feel like he's a big game player. It's like, he might like chill a little bit during the season, but in the moments you need a guy, he steps up and he makes a play. And I kind of like that. So stock down. Give me a guy who the guy who fell the most in the process or fell the most. You need to go back. You need to look at the tape, whatever it is, but the guy who surprised you negatively.
Hey, I don't know that people are going to love this in general. And I don't know how much of this was from the combine, but I think somebody that has been high on boards all season. And I'm trying to pull up his athletic profile right now, and I'm just gonna search it. There we go. Avion Terrell is a guy who I think a lot of people fell in love with. We didn't see him run at the combine. He came in at 5'11, 185. 31-inch arms is nice for his size. 8 and 5 inches, 8 and 5/8 hands, pretty all right. Athleticism score with his vertical jump and his broad jump at 17 bench press reps was pretty low, 28th of anybody at the combine. I'm happy to talk about it, and I don't know that I'm not going to come on here and trash a player, but I've never seen it from Avion Terrell. I don't really get it. I felt like in his time at Clemson, I watched him get picked on his like several times. I felt like at Clemson, of all of these like big players at Clemson, the one who disappointed me the most on film was Avion Terrell.
But do you feel like
I
he's
think
riding the wave of his older brother being a starting corner and he's kind of getting name recognition that he wouldn't get if he was Avion Smith?
I mean, look, he has the traits. He has this like idea of what he can be, and there are some seriously good reps. Like it's not like he's never good. And it's something that I spoke with people in our like big group chat. He's not the type of guy that is going to be consistently perfect, but some of those reps were really, really good. I mean, teach tape is the word that they use. He had several like teach tape reps, but it just felt like to me that a lot of times, I mean, on the other side of him, the other Clemson corner was Jaden Lucas. And I felt like a lot of the time while I was watching them, Jaden Lucas wasn't getting targeted as much as Avion Terrell was. I felt like there were a lot of games. And one of the biggest tells to me as a corner is if I'm watching you, how long do I have to watch your film till I get a real rep, like real understanding of how good your ball skills are? Because I mean, if go turn on Davison Igbinosun, go turn on Mansour Delane or Jamad McCoy. People don't throw their way. The best corners don't get targeted because the guys they're covering aren't open. Davison Igbinosun was locking guys up. People weren't throwing the ball his way. Jamad McCoy covering guys up and down. People weren't throwing it his way. People were going at Avion Terrell at times, and I kind of have some concerns about how he translates to the NFL level. Not seeing him run was a little disappointing.
Okay. The one guy that I would highlight, I guess, on the negative side would be Tim Keenan, the third out of Alabama. I just feel like physically, athletically, you can go down to like the 7-Eleven and find a Tim Keenan the third. He checked in at 6'1", 327, 30.5-inch arms, under 9-inch hands, like 8.5-inch hands, really, really small. A 5'3", 140 with a 183 10-yard split, 30-inch vertical, 8'4" broad jump. Now, the one thing I will say, silver lining on this cloud, is that I've heard he interviewed incredibly well. So that's definitely a silver lining, but just athletically, there's nothing exciting about him. If anything, there's a lot to worry about him. So I don't know how Tim Keenan the third projected to you prior to the combine. I know a lot of people have had him. He's been a little bit. I know guys who have had him early day 3, and I know guys who have him UDFA priority free agent sort of thing. I think I lean more towards the latter there. I think he's going to go later, if anything. I'm glad you mentioned Jamad McCoy, though. If he has to work out at his pro day, in my opinion. If he doesn't work out at his pro day, how high are you comfortable taking him? If you don't see him work out at all.
I mean, man, I don't know, no measurables. I want to see him work out, even if it's no like 40 time and things like that. Yeah, it is tough. I think just outside the top 50, maybe. I mean, that's concerning if he's not working out. To me, it's not as much what he can do then, but like what is he not showing everybody? You know what I mean? Like,
well, it reminds me of the corner out of Michigan last year.
Yeah, Will Johnson.
Yes, yeah, I was coming up with Will. I couldn't come up with the last name, Johnson. Yeah, he would be real reminiscent of that.
Yeah, and I mean, Will Johnson was one that it was like a toe injury. It was like that was a little less like, okay, dude, his toe hurts. Like he'll be okay. I think like anybody that's played sports has played with a, injured, broken, dislocated toe or something like that, or a finger or something like that. I'm not too worried about a toe injury. Jermon McCoy blew out his ACL and didn't play a full season of football. If he doesn't test, that is concerning. I mean, we see with modern medicine how these ACLs heal. I mean, we've seen some. I watched Cam Akers play in a Super Bowl after tearing an Achilles that year. I mean, Aaron Rodgers returned to the Jets just because he could.
I mean, Stephon Diggs is 10 years older than McCoy, and he just returned and didn't miss a beat, didn't miss a minute of the offseason from a torn ACL, and he's 10 years older than McCoy.
Yeah, so I think if you're looking at a guy who just ends up not testing whatsoever all off season or doesn't do any workouts, he says he's 100%. He says he can do it all now. I just need to see him prove it. Because as much as I want to believe you, I don't.
Yeah, no, that's where I'm at too. I've got to see something out of him to be able to feel comfortable with spending a first round pick if I was the guy making decisions on how to spend first round picks. Listen, before we get out of here, let me hit you with a couple quick takes from my last mock draft. And I just want to see what your reactions are. Number 1, Monroe Freeling going top 10. I had him going 6 to the Browns. What do you think?
So first I'm going to ask, is this because of what you think should happen or what you think will happen?
This is what I think will happen.
I think Monroe Freeling will go in the top 10. I would say that if we had a conversation here about the biggest combine overreactions, Monroe Freeling's up there. I think we've gotten to the point where we're so dissociated from the season and we're so entrenched in the draft talk that people saw a 6'7" long-armed left tackle measure in and saw that he played at an SEC school and kind of forgot about the struggles that he had, not sinking in his stance, not being able to really generate the power that you want, being on the ground a little too often, a lot of arm blocking and not being able to get down to faster edge rushers. He has these skills. He has the traits. He is probably the best true 100% left tackle in this year's draft. But
now,
there is a hefty but on that.
Well, let me add the caveat. Number 1, I did that mock last Monday. So before measurements were taken, tests were taken, any of that. So that didn't actually factor in. What you just said there, left tackle, that's what factored in. Positional value drives this because you try to find a left tackle in free agency, try to find a left tackle in the draft. It's really, really fucking hard. So if you have a swing at a guy who has the look that he has the right ceiling, I think you got to take it, especially in this draft where most of the guys who are considered the top tackles, like half the world's projecting them to guard. Whether it's Fano, whether it's Maui Noah, whether it's Lomu. I mean, there's conversations around all these guys about whether they can even play tackle. Freeling does not have those conversations. He's got all the athletic tools, which he went and confirmed for guys like me who picked him beforehand and showed guys that have been picking him since to go top 10. I think that he's definitely, it's positional value that's driving things.
Yeah, I think coming into this draft, we all thought it was like Caden Proctor. He's the left tackle in this year's draft. It's Caden Proctor. And then he crapped the bed to start the season, and everybody was like, uh-oh, who's the left tackle? And so I think there is a bad hunt for one. But I also think that there's an extent to which it's okay to just admit that there isn't one. I'm not sold on Monroe Freeling. I'm just going to say that. And I think that Monroe Freeling has the talent to be a very good offensive tackle, an elite offensive tackle. He has all the athletic traits to do it. And we've seen guys like that work out. But you have to draft him to the right team. You have to get him to the right offensive line coach. I have not seen any confidence that the Cleveland Browns, who are about to send all 5 of their starting offensive linemen into free agency, have been able to develop offensive linemen. And it could be a good spot for them with a new coaching staff. If they have a strong offensive line coach, you give him a chance to go out there and struggle in his first year and learn from that tape in the offseason. But there is an extent to which I think Monroe Freeling has all those skills. But if you get him in the wrong situation, he could cost someone their job.
Okay.
And I don't say that to say that Monroe Freeling's bad. I'm not one to come here and like trash a player, but I think that he will go that high because of how much teams value left tackles. But I think there is an extent to which we have to like pump the brakes here. Maybe he's a first round guy. I have him top 100. but I and maybe positional value would push him to the end of the first round if I was a team desperate for a left tackle. But the Browns, I think, have better options at 6, but I don't know that would stop them from taking a left tackle at 6, especially with how bad their offensive line looks right now. And you're right,
Yeah, I mean,
getting a left tackle is hard.
that's essentially my thought process on it. So
Yeah,
the
go.
second curveball from this mock is going to be harder to swallow. I'll prepare you for that. But I sent Drew Aller to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. I just think, look, I know he didn't have a great season. I know that. I get it. I get all the negatives. I know that he doesn't have a perfect quarterback reading, ability to read the defense. What I think is that, and look, my mocks are kind of intertwined. Okay, what I think the teams are going to do if I feel like I have some sort of read on it or whatever, and what I might do. This is more what I think the team might do, just because I think Drew Aller's the type of quarterback that an old school coach sees and falls in love with. And I think Mike McCarthy is an old school coach. And I don't think there's a more old school organization than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I just see, man, you grab Drew Aller, whether it's in the first, second, third round, wherever it is they think they can get him, you get him sitting behind Rodgers for a year, 2 years, however long it is, Rodgers feels like he can play. And then you bring him up. And I put him at 21 in this. Partially, it's a controversial pick. It is what it is, but when you see a guy you like, you go get him. You don't give it a chance for somebody else to get him. You'd go get him. And they showed us that they were willing to do that with Kenny Pickett at about the same range a couple of years ago. So review my Drew Aller pick at 21 of the Steelers.
I think you throw out a couple of things here. For Drew Aller specifically, a tweet that went like relatively viral this weekend, Landon Tengwall was talking about Drew Aller is going to be a first round pick, whether you like it or not. He said that when, I don't know if you saw that.
I did. Like I said, this mock was made a week and a half or over a week ago now. So
yeah,
that
so
tweet definitely came out this weekend. Yes, I did though.
I went back and forth with Landon about that. He and I went to high school together. Or it grew up right next to each other. He played like little league football with me before he committed to Penn State and grew while I didn't. I was never anywhere near as good as he was. Don't ever get that twisted. I don't want to go toe to toe with him ever. But Landon's a great dude, but he went to Penn State and he said, Drew Aller's going to go round 1. A bunch of people called him a homer, but I think that you got to look at two things here. One, quarterback is the most valuable position in the NFL. It's going to be the exact same thing we're talking about with Monroe Freeling. People are not going to just swallow the pill of, okay, not this year. Nobody does that. It doesn't happen. I mean, it's just rare for teams to just say like, okay, we're going to move on. Drew Aller has all those traits. He's the Monroe Freeling of this quarterback class. He has all of those tools that you look for. He checks every single one of those boxes, except for the production in college. And even the production isn't that bad. It's the film. It's like Drew Aller has 2 or 3 throws a game that you're like, what? How did he throw that? Like, how do you make that throw? And then he has 5 or 6 throws a game that you go, what? How did he make? Why would you make that throw? Like,
yeah,
it's a couple times a game. It was kind of my gripe with Carson Beck. I felt like those two guys showed that they have the skills to be NFL quarterbacks, but they crumble late in games. They just collapse when the game is on the line. And that's something you can't really teach. It's not a huge thing. I think that's something that maybe you can work on, but you can't teach that to a guy. Right. Like, it's something that, maybe you develop over time with more situations like that. But Drew Aller didn't have a lot of turnovers, but the ones he had, ouch. Carson Beck didn't have a crap load of turnovers. The ones he had, Carson Beck lost like 6 games in college, and 4 of them were on game-losing interceptions. Yeah. It felt the same way to Drew Aller, especially in these big games. They lost to Oregon. First play overtime, big pick. That's like the last big memory everybody has of Drew Aller. Last year, Drew Aller may have been the second quarterback off the board. He probably would have gone above Jackson Dart. So I think people aren't remembering the 5-star recruit, tons of athleticism. He has all that it takes. He's just got to kind of put those tools together. Um, I could see it for the Steelers. I think the only issue that comes in there is that Mike McCarthy has never developed a quarterback ever in his life. Aaron Rodgers is kind of like handed to him.
Mm.
And with the Cowboys, he got Dak, and so now he's with the Steelers. We'll see if he can do that. But I do think that if he falls in love with the quarterback, it would probably be Drew Aller because Mendoza's not there. And you took Aller above Simpson.
Yeah, I didn't take Simpson at all.
Yeah, I don't think Mendoza's the only quarterback I have a first round grade on. Simpson's the only other guy that I even have in my top 100. I don't
To
think.
me, Simpson and Nuss are kind of similar in that like they're both like coaches' kids, both smart, both I see them both holding a clipboard for a lot of years in the NFL, but and being like good enough to like maybe step in if your starter goes down, but you don't want to like open the season with either one of them as your starter, I don't think.
I will tell you, and I struggle with this immensely because I'm not in the room of medical evaluators or off field interviewers, stuff like that. If I find out that I read rumors that Simpson either had a back injury or he had like gastritis or something like this in the second half of the season, and that he dropped like 30 pounds. If it's true that he had an injury or a medical setback of some kind halfway through the season, and that even explained 50% of his, cliff fall off after like Halloween of last year, I would feel a lot more comfortable spending a top 100 pick on him. But I don't know. I don't know if that was just like a late season collapse, pressure, or something like that, off field stuff. You just don't know what that stuff was about. But Simpson fell apart late in the season last year. That's the thing. And we've seen like Dan Orlovsky, I think it was the other day, said that Ty Simpson's first 8 games were better than Mendoza's first
I
8
saw
games.
Todd McShay say that too yesterday.
I don't think they're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think they're wrong. I put Ty Simpson as my QB1 for about a week. It was like after that 8th week. And then week 9 hit. And then he was not QB1 anymore. And he wasn't QB1 or anything close to it again. And I think that's what people are talking about is that Ty Simpson after week 8 was he just was bad. Mendoza was continued to be good. Mendoza earned that first overall pick. I think Simpson could have been a first round pick, and you have to figure out whether that was off field related, on field related, what you got to go through for that. But I think that he had some sort of something went on. I don't know what it was. If it was all mental, then I can't help you. But
yeah, look, as a mock draft community, we'll have to keep an eye out for it. Us Patriots, we really are not keeping an eye on the quarterback class this year.
Yeah, no need to worry. Neither are the Chiefs, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, same for you guys. Not a big concern for either of us, but
yeah.
All right. Well, listen, that's gonna do it tonight. We kept you a little long. Sorry,
that's okay. No, I was gonna say apparently the Chiefs are keeping their eye on the offensive tackle situation, and
yeah, well, they're releasing Juwan Taylor, right? So they're gonna need a right tackle.
Well, this is exactly what you were saying earlier with the value of offensive tackles, right? Like left tackle is so hard to find that the Chiefs signed Juwan Taylor, intended to play him at left tackle, then re-signed Donovan Smith, and we're like, you're going back to right, buddy. Kicked him over to right tackle. Donovan Smith was at left tackle. So then we're like, we're going to get a better guy because we don't want Wanye Morris or Kingsley Suamataia playing left tackle. So they went out and signed Jalen Moore. And then even with Jalen Moore on a $30 million deal, they drafted Simmons at 31, and Simmons beat him out for the job. And so Moore was a backup. So now Moore's our right tackle.
Now, what's going to be wild is after all of that, if they don't get a solid swing tackle here and you're reliant on Justin Simmons and he gets injured, they're going to have spent all that time with tackles and still end up in the same predicament that they've been in the past 2 times we've seen them in Super Bowls.
Jalen Moore would have to go to left tackle, and they have Issa Pole, who last year I had graded as the 5th best utility offensive lineman in the draft, a position ranking that I've done away with this year, but probably would have been like 9th or 10th tackle in the draft. Pole can play right tackle. He can't play left tackle. Moore can play left and right. So I think that if Simmons got injured, Moore shifts to left and Pole fits in at right. Either way, not ideal, which is this becomes extraordinarily more
I mean, it'll be interesting too to see if they trade McDuffie, what kind of draft value they get out of that.
Yeah, this becomes extremely more important if the Chiefs throw away their ninth overall pick, taking another offensive tackle. At some point, you just have to say we haven't figured it out, or we kind of have figured it out enough. I mean, you have an all-pro center, a Pro Bowl guard, another Pro Bowl guard, a left tackle who has been all rookie team if he was healthy, and Jalen Moore can just be fine. Like it's okay. It's not the end of the world if Jalen Moore is just okay. They really got to figure something else out. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
well,
digress. That's
and that's what I was going to get. If they can, if they do end up trading McDuffie, they get a little bit of value out of that. Maybe a day 2 pick, day 1 pick. I'm not sure what they'd be able to get out of that,
it'll be
but
50-50. I think they'll try to
turn
squeeze the
that
Rams.
into it. Maybe throw that towards replacing getting a decent swing tackle, even if you have to trade up into the back of the first from the second, to get one of these guys if they're falling. Maybe, I don't know, but it
Yeah.
certainly gives them some options.
Yeah, that late trade up scenario is something to mention for the quarterbacks too, because teams like that 5th-year option. So don't be
Right.
shocked, especially for somebody like Drew Aller or Simpson, if a team sneaks their way up into that late first territory, grabs one of them. I bet the Saints are wishing they did that for Tyler Shuck right now, because he's going to be off that contract at some point.
Yeah, true. All right. Well, listen, that's going to do it for us here at Snap Judgments tonight. This is Matt Chabot at Chabot Sports on Twitter, and Arrowhead Addict online for your pieces. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Arrowhead Addict. I have my rankings up on my own site, next up CFB, but for the most part, I'm sticking over at Arrowhead Addict through draft season. Hopefully next time I'm here, I don't sound like this. Past the whole cold thing. I got to get my tonsils out at some point, but what can you do?
No worries, man. You go get yourself taken care of, feel better. We will talk to you again at some point in the near future. Definitely before the draft, we'll get back in here and we'll talk some more. Maybe we'll talk about the offensive side of the ball for a change. You and I
Yeah,
are always
right.
talking defense,
I'm
Let's talk
always
some
happy
wide
to talk.
receivers next time.
Sounds like a plan, man.
All right. Have a great night, guys. Have a great night, everyone. Remember, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, all that good stuff. I'll be back in the morning tomorrow, 9 a.m. Tej and I are going to do a first round mock draft. Tune in for that. It'll be good stuff. We'll see you then, guys.